Alright guys, we're back tonight and we'll be in Revelation 6 verses 12 through 17. I'll get started. We're talking about the sixth seal tonight. Then I saw him open the sixth seal. A violent earthquake occurred. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of hair. The entire moon became like blood. The stars of heaven fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its unripe figs when shaken by a high wind. The sky was split apart like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved from its place. Then the kings of the earth, the nobles, the generals, the rich, the powerful, and every slave and free person hid in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains. And they said to the mountains and to the rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of the one seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to stand?" So right off the bat here, we're going to see nature's disrupted as we see a violent earthquake that's going to come. The sun's turning black like a sackcloth full of hair. The moon's turning blood red. The stars of heaven are going to fall to the earth. The sky is going to be split open. It says like a scroll being rolled up. And the mountains and islands are going to be moved from their place. So we kind of see here that God's kind of going back through this time of judgment and redoing the things that he initially done when he created everything back in Genesis 1. And yes, God did create everything. Moving on, these people, it says, and these people are from all different social classes. We don't see just like the poor or just the rich. No, this is every person ran for their lives into a cave because of the fear that they had for God's judgment, or of God's judgment, whichever way you would like to put it. And they even begged to be hidden, which we can say they begged to be crushed to death by the rocks so that they wouldn't have to deal with God's judgment. But we see them running and begging or whatever, running from God. And we can kind of compare this back into Genesis again in the initial creation when at the fall of man, when Eve and Adam were deceived by the serpent and ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And with that, obviously we have the sin that we have today because that opened the door for sin to enter the world. But they became naked and they knew they were because they heard footsteps in the garden, which obviously was God. But if they heard footsteps, was it not Jesus that was in the garden with Adam and Eve? So, with that being said, so they're in the garden, right? And Jesus says, he's looking for them, and then they ask, "Why are you hidden?" And he says, "Because I'm naked," So they knew what they were doing, and so they ran from God. They're similar, but there's two different, I guess you can say, sides of it. But they are kind of similar in that. But these people's hearts here are like hardened, and they wouldn't accept the salvation. They would rather die than accept the salvation of Christ. And what makes that so ironic is, if we read this, we see that it says, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of the one seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the great day of their wrath is come, and who is able to stand?" They knew that it was God and Jesus' judgment. It was time for it, but they still could not accept the fact that they could have salvation and suffer no more. They rejected that, and continued to do what they were doing, and would rather die than accept the salvation the salvation that Christ provided. To me, that's just, I don't see myself in a situation, especially now being, I am a Christian. I don't think I could honestly say, "Kill me, I'd rather die than accept your son as the perfect, spotless sacrifice, sinless, pure sacrifice for my guilt, my sin, my shame, all of that, to have life with you again." I don't think I'd just say kill me rather than do that. I'm going to take a free gift of salvation that all it takes is putting my belief and faith that his son did indeed step out of heaven, come to earth, became flesh, And he became flesh that knew no sin. Like you and I, we sin, we're inherently sinful. And paid the debt that he didn't know so that we may be with him again. I don't think I'm going to give that up. And in covering the last part of this, because the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to stand. This is kind of a transitional point in tribulation, as we now see we're about halfway through. This is probably somewhere between 3.5 years into the 7-year period, and this day is going to be like no other. And many are going to come to know Christ this day, or through this right now. But some are still going to reject it, as these people who, ran into the mountains and would rather die than accept Christ. Some people are still going to, and they're going to experience God's heightened judgment. And to say that, I just want to say, y'all, don't wait till it's too late. If God's still waking you up and you haven't professed your faith as a Christian, y'all, do it. I'm telling you, I'm not going to say this path gets it's the easiest, the key to life, but in a way, it is the key to life. Everlasting life. By believing in this, you can have everlasting life. And with that, you're like, well, how do I know it's true? Let me tell you something. I'd rather spend my whole life knowing and believing this Bible, and I die and find out it's not true, than waste my entire life now not doing this, and then find out that it was true after I die, and now I'm spending eternity in hell and had no chance to repent. But with that being said, tonight, guys, that's all I got tonight. So I love y'all. Jesus loves y'all, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.